That's right. We are live at the Wells Fargo Center. It is home game number 2, game number 4 of the season as the Flyers welcome Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and the 1 and 2 Edmonton Oilers to town. It is Jason Martinez, Brian Smith, and Smitty. The task tonight is not an easy one. It's one that, like a lot of times, players and athletes say, "Well, I want to go against the best to measure myself against the best." I don't know that any player looks forward to going against a guy like Connor McDavid, though.
Well, I guess it's interesting how you think about it. Some players, I think, relish the opportunity. I think some guys look at it as an opportunity to kind of thrive. But yeah, you're right. He's a very, very tough assignment. I can certainly see being in the Western Conference being very tired of him very quickly. Guys in the East, who knows? Maybe they actually enjoy it. But we're hoping that. We're certainly hoping that Noah Cates enjoys it, and we're hoping that if he goes against them, that they have another night like he did last year. We were talking a little bit about it. I know you were in Flyers Daily. I think it was that now they can throw Cates and Couturier at him. So, Hey, who knows? Maybe they've got a double-headed monster here that they can toss at Connor McDavid. But then you also got that Draisaitl guy and all sorts of stuff going on. So, it's just like everybody else. They'll do the best they can and see where they come away with it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. If McDavid and Draisaitl don't play together and you are the home team as the Flyers are tonight, you get that last change, you're probably making sure either Cates or Couturier are on the ice when either one of those guys are on that.
You would think that that's something that you can probably put in your pockets and definitely try to match lines here at home. That's the problem. We talked about Catesy having a good game against him here, and the Flyers couldn't shut him down in Edmonton. Well, here they got last change, so they can match him if they want to. I don't know if John Tortorella will do that or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if they try to get those guys out against them as much as they possibly can. So, again, a team that really took it on the chin the first couple of games, both against Vancouver. They took it out on Nashville the other night, and so now hopefully the Flyers catch them in a little better mood.
All right, let's put you to the true test, though, Smitty.
Yeah.
You listen to Flyers Daily because you heard me talk about Cates and Couturier. Do you recall the team that I mentioned, the only team in the NHL that Connor McDavid is not a point per game or better player against?
You said St. Louis, right?
Damn, you're good.
Yeah. And well, I remember you. I was
surprised.
This is going to require more information than people want, but I have a loose connection in my truck, in my stereo system.
Uh-huh.
And while you were talking about that, every 10 seconds it would go quiet for 3 seconds or something. So I couldn't pick up exactly what you were talking about when you did it, but I knew you mentioned the Blues. I thought you were saying, were you saying point per game? Is that what you were going at?
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
So that seems like an odd duck for him to not be good against, but
it does. Because he's played him 21 times. He's got 18 points. He's got 7 goals and 11 assists in those 21 games against the Blues. Conversely, against the Flyers, he's only played the Flyers 13 times. Of course, one of the years of his career, we didn't even see him because of the Canadian division and coming out of the pandemic. But 13 total games, and in those 13 games, he's fed. He's got 10 goals and 15 assists for 25 points, and is a plus 14.
It's amazing sometimes how certain logos just they don't jive well with the guy. Sometimes the guy just has I don't our buddy Bundy, who will be here in just a minute, he was the guy for whatever reason that Jaromir Jagr always had problems with. It's always just everybody's got their kryptonite, I guess, and maybe it's the St. Louis nightlife. I don't know, but it's certainly. I would imagine the Flyers are pretty happy to be pretty high on that list.
When you look at certain guys' numbers, we've looked at Sidney Crosby's numbers against the Flyers, and he's got more points, more goals against the Flyers than any other team, and it's been throughout his career in total his biggest rival. So if I asked you, in light of that, who Connor McDavid has the most points against in the NHL, who would it be?
Most points, I'm assuming it would be a Calgary or a Vancouver or something like that.
It's Calgary.
Calgary.
Yeah. The Battle of Alberta, right?
Yeah. That's, he's from up there. I don't know exactly where he's from, but he's from Canada somewhere, and that's a rivalry that is as big as any other one up there. And it's always been funny to me that I always felt Montreal has a bigger rivalry with Boston than they do Toronto, and so when it comes to rivalries up there, I mean Edmonton Calgary is about as good as it gets between two actual Canadian teams.
Yeah, he's actually from Richmond Hill, Ontario.
Okay.
McDavid is. But, yeah, I mean, against that team, he's got 52 points, 29 goals, 23 assists in 37 games. And obviously they've played each other quite a bit because they're in the same division as well. He's also a pretty good starter, Bri, in the season's 115 points in 75 games in the month of October. So he is a guy that gets going right away. Matter of fact, his shooting percentage in the month of October is only outdone in 1 month by 0.6 in May, where he's played very few games because that's playoff time for the most part. That's when the season kind of had that big delay in it with the pandemic, but he shoots at 19.4%. This is just a guy that's very dangerous on all levels is what we're trying to say. Yeah,
absolutely. And he's obviously the reason that this team last year had like a 36% power play or something like that. I don't know if the coaches tell players not to take penalties against a certain team or if that just makes it worse. But Flyers do anything like they did against Ottawa the other night against this team, then there's no point. Am I correct that when they were here last year, did the Flyers not take a penalty in that game?
The first game they did not, and I remember Torts talking about it, and he said the players were scared to death to take a penalty.
Right.
But to do that, let's talk about that for a second. To not take a penalty takes a lot of diligence because you know that when you're on the ice, a lot of penalties are caused by a mental lapse, and you're going, I got to get back into position, or I'm trailing the play because I had a mental, just the smallest of mental lapses can cause that. But if you're really on point and mentally sharp, you can mitigate that because you're always reading the play properly. That's what the Flyers did against Edmonton last year. It was a big reason why they won that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris Therrien's joined us now up here, and I'm sure can attest to a little bit of that about when you're tired, when you're delayed in the shifts, that's when the mental lapses happen, right? When the penalties come and things of that nature.
There's no doubt about it. And hello to everybody out there. Big night here tonight, actually recovery night. So I was just signing some autographs, giving away some coins. Really cool. Another big crowd here on the concourse. But yeah, you're right, guys. I mean, anytime anybody tells you, that's why the focus is always when a tight game in the third period. If you keep your shift short in the game, then you're fresh in the third. And there's, people say, well, what's that mean? That's really what it means, because you're going to make fatal mistakes when you're tired. And if you're tired in the third period or you've taken too long an extension of a shift, you're going to make mistakes. And that's how you get in trouble, especially against a guy with speed, I assume what you're talking about with a team like McDavid, that you're going to get yourself in a world of trouble because of that speed and fatigue on your end. So you got to avoid that. You got to be, there's going to be a matchup. I don't know what they're going to do, if they're going to go with a forward line matchup on him tonight. Defense, I mean, I guess you put Sanheim there from his skating ability on the left side. But, yeah, this is a situation where you get guys on the ice and you got to make sure you're fresh, not hemmed in. Guys, I don't know if you talked about it, but I thought Vancouver the other night had the Flyers hemmed in most of the first period. And I don't think that that's necessarily the way you want to start a game. And that will be the case again tonight against a team like Edmonton that had a rough start against Vancouver, but looks like they may have found their footing the other night with a big win against Nashville.
Yeah, they belted the Predators, and that's bad timing for Nashville after getting beat twice in the first one. I think it was, 8-1 against Vancouver. The funny thing about
8-0.
Yeah, was it 8-0? Crazy. 8-1 was the final, But let me ask you about that because, we were talking, Brian and I were talking at the intermission after that first period. You saw the territorial advantage that Vancouver had. They outpossessed the Flyers by 3 minutes in the offensive zone. That's significant in one period. And we're going, okay, there's going to be pushback. Rick Tockett's the coach, for goodness sake. They came back in that second period. The Flyers outshot them. I think that the final now is 23-3. I was stunned by that. And Tock laid into him after the game.
Well, you see, he's probably in the same sense as watching the game from Ottawa when he watched the video and said, this is how you expose the Flyers. And if you play like that, you're going to win. But, I mean, even guys like, I thought that Quinn Hughes had a pretty good game for Vancouver. I don't want to rehash too much, but, guys like Pettersson, Miller, Besser, they were invisible in that hockey game.
Best
And
players?
those are your best. Yeah, and your best players, you can't get a goal against this team on the road after you just put up 13 in 2 games is remarkable.
Yeah.
So
Bundy,
let me ask you this, Bundy, real quick. While we were just talking about this before you came here about McDavid and Noah Cates being able to shut him down when they were here last year, and it's almost kind of Noah Cates' coming out party. And one in reference we brought up is how you were not Jaromir Jagr's favorite person when you played. What is it about keying in on a superstar that makes it possible to just kind of shut him down?
I think the Jagr thing grows legs more every year. You know what?
you're not exactly tamping it down there, Bundy.
It's just, I hear more about it. I forgot his name sometimes, but I mean, you know what? I always said, it just shows somebody can have somebody's number.
Yeah.
And I had his number, but again, I don't want to sit here and saying, Noah Cates has McDavid's number. You know who really did? There was a guy like Tampa Bay. They have a guy named Anthony Cirelli, and Anthony Cirelli in the Memorial Cup shut down McDavid, the forward line. So you can go back to it. And if you look at those stats, so maybe he has a harder time with a forward matchup than a defense matchup. I do believe that you've got to clamp down on him as soon as he has the puck.
Not let him wind it up. Yep.
That's exactly right. And that's the biggest part, I think, when you look at a guy like McDavid, is being able to take him out early and to make a really solid play on him in the D zone. And then that allows your defense to have a gap as well.
Everybody in here agrees with that.
Yes.
Yeah,
See that?
Bundy, here's the thing, though. And the reason why, guys like you were able to really mitigate the damage Jagr could do and why Cates had success last year, it's being on top of your game mentally, reading plays, but also being a really good skater. Like that if you don't have that, you got no chance of mitigating those guys, do you?
You won't believe it just happened. The TVs are in front of us. The Phillies got him out. The TVs went black right when a back got hit, and everybody's losing their marbles.
Boy, I saw my life flash before my eyes there for a minute.
So we're having fun here in the Bet
We were
Rivers
going to have a riot
bar area.
Let's take a break. Let's have everybody take a breath. We'll come back with more here on the pregame show. We'll take you up to Flyers Oilers at the bottom of the hour. Stay tuned. It is the Flyers game day broadcast with Jason Martinez, Chris Terrian, and Brian Smith on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. And we are back at the Wells Fargo Center where the Flyers take on the Edmonton Oilers tonight. As the Phillies, is it 1-1 now, boys?
It is 1-1, yes. Yeah. And for those of you on the stream, Bundy and I will just move aside so you can see the TV behind us. And I'm sure you're more interested in that. But, there's – I would estimate there's at least 1,000 televisions in this building, and probably 750 of them are on the same channel right now. So it's including the big one that was over the ice before warm-up started, had the game on. So, it's a big night here.
But the city's a buzz right now,
Isn't it
isn't
great?
it? Like Bundy, you played in those. I remember those playoff series back in the 90s.
Yep.
Big Al's in his prime in those days, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, come in here, it's warm outside, the block party's going, long playoff runs. Like, what's that like from a player perspective? Like, you pull into the parking lot, Al, and there's people out there barbecuing. They were playing cornhole because that wasn't in existence yet back then. But, geez, it's just incredible.
Especially with the town you're in. Like, I had the pleasure of playing here in Philadelphia most every playoff. So, I think you're seeing, getting a glimpse or understanding, watching the Phillies, what the fans are like. And they've been maniacal, but I love it. Like, they've been they make it hard to win here, and that's what you want. And that's what Flyers hockey was great. And I do remember those amazing spring nights with the weather changing, people getting ready to their barbecues, going for a great hockey game. And there was always something, an atmosphere about who you were playing and how everybody would revel in getting into that series. And then hopefully you win it, move on, and everybody would get re-amped up again. It was a great, great time, and it always will be in Philadelphia.
Let me ask you, Bundy, about the element of, an opponent almost being beaten by the atmosphere before the game even happens. Because we're seeing this with the Phillies. Players on some of the other teams that they've faced have tried to minimize the effect of the Philadelphia crowd. And like Citizens Bank Park has been compared recently, I think it was Colin Coward who said that it's a football environment at a baseball game, which is kind of different, right? But for players to come in and almost have this anticipation of the crowd, and therefore it really kind of gets in their head. You can kind of feel that as an opposition, can't you?
Yeah, you do. But the other thing too, Jason, and again, it's a great point you make, but you have to have the players and the personnel to rile the crowd up to that level.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you have to hit the ball. If you're not hitting the ball or you're not striking people out, your crowd becomes, quiet. So it doesn't matter. The Phillies fans can say all they want, and they've been unbelievable. I've been down to that building last year. I was there this year. It's insane. But it's also a product of how your players perform. And that's no different for hockey or football. When it's wild in the Wells Fargo Center and things are going good and there's a lot to root for, the same thing goes on here. I've heard this building insane before.
Yeah.
But the Phillies have the players. They built that, down. They didn't make the playoffs for, was it like 10 years or something crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so they've turned the corner. They rebuilt. They got players in free agency. And I think that's kind of a model that the Flyers should be looking for, because there are days ahead where there will be loud spring evenings and afternoons back here in Philadelphia again, too.
Man, that's awesome. You're right, though. Like, the crowd doesn't go crazy. It can become a detriment if you don't feed the crowd. You got to feed the crowd something, right?
Yes.
You got to give them something to go bananas for. This Phillies team gives them something to go bananas for. You guys did in your era as well, and we're looking to get back to that because, damn, it is a lot of fun when things are like that for sure. Let's talk about this game tonight, too, for the Flyers. This notion, guys, of one up, one down, win one, lose one. You got 2 games here at home. Yeah, it's a tough task tonight against Edmonton. They're in game 2 of a road trip. Only 2 games for them on this kind of mini trip through Nashville and here. But you want to start to develop a rhythm and try and start to put some wins together. It's so early still, but you just don't want to sit there and keep flipping back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more I look at that Ottawa game, it's almost like, that kind of happened too early in the season to even be able to look at it and figure out what happened. It could have been the 1 o'clock thing. It could have been a whole host of things. But yeah, you've got to find a way to start stringing some things together here. And the travel is not exactly great for the Flyers. They can't, no team in the East can complain about travel, but they got to go to Dallas and then off to Vegas and then come all the way across the country after Vegas and play the next night here at home against Minnesota. So it's going to be, it's going to start getting into the regular old ordinary grind of a regular season here real quick. And, that's hopefully something they can learn earlier than they did last year. It's all part of the process, I guess, and they'll figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah. Going to Dallas on Saturday. Bundy, would you anticipate that probably the first game for a guy like Sam Harrison?
It would be a good spot for him, for sure. Yeah, it'd be a good opportunity for him to get him in there. And I don't see why not. He's a very qualified goaltender. I thought he did a lot of good things last year. And, you got to take a little bit of the workload off of Hart, albeit he's had a good start and was outstanding last game, which I think certainly helped, for what he's at. But this is Early in the season, you get to kind of toy with a lot of things, if you will. The first 10 games, you get a little bit of a glimpse of your team, what you like, what you don't like. And that'd be for the coaches and management to evaluate. But I think for the players that are at, Jason, that would be probably a night I think you'll see Sam Urson against Dallas.
Hey, Bundy, has the mentality of the players, the skaters on a team, changed in any way when the backup goalie goes? Because in your day, there were guys like Brodeur back in your day would play 76, 78 games of 82.
Yeah.
They played, the starter played all the time if he was healthy. And, the natural thing is, okay, our backup's in there. Uh-oh, the guy's not as good. We never play him, right? We just, beat the hell out of him with pucks in practice. And there's this mentality of that. Has that changed, do you think? Because it's much more tandem goaltending now than it's ever been in this sport.
It is. And you know what? I think that, goaltending's really become a strange study, I think, in the NHL, because there's been teams that have won out to win Stanley Cups without guys by the name of Marty Brodeur. And they were not household names. You can look at Colorado. You can look at last year in Vegas. It's not something new. So I think when you get a guy who's hot at the time, you've got to ride that out. But I think it also is an understanding what kind of a team you have. For me, I didn't care who played. I didn't focus on that. I let them worry about that. If there's shots on net, that's up to the goaltender to stop it. But I did not care who was in.
Didn't affect you.
I did not care one bit if it was the backup or if it was the starting goaltender. It made no difference to me. Just
even
Czech
Monic?
Even Czech Monic.
Took the words out of my mouth.
Well, the Czech Monic is just,
he's bananas.
Here's my. Wait, we're really opening up some more. I mean, when
you wanted back in, we're going to open up the Pandora's box, brother.
When he had his plane ticket back to the Czech Republic at the time.
Before the game was played.
Before the series had started, that was kind of a sign that we may not be in for one of those deep spring playoff
plan ahead for a flight like that, right?
I've heard of starting the bus early, but geez, having the plane ticket already booked, it's a little.
That's not the first time that's happened in the history of the league. So there's a few stories. Yeah.
We'll save those for the podcast.
Yes.
And so the goalie as well. All right, let's take our last time out. We're going to take you right up to the countdown to face-off. Tim Saunders, Todd Fedoruk are standing by. Bundy in the house. Brian Smith, Jason Martinez, Flyers Game Day on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. The Flyers and the Oilers tonight from Wells Fargo Center, Game 4 of the season. All right, the matchup within the matchup here tonight. Bundy, we talked about Cates and Couturier as, guys to match up against Draisaitl and McDavid. But from a defensive standpoint, who do you want? What's the two guys that you want on the ice against McDavid and Draisaitl? You mentioned Sanheim earlier because of the skating. Is there another element that you want out there on that ice to deal with those guys in certain situations?
Two good skaters. I mean, if you can make that happen. So it's going to be Sanheim for sure on the playing on that. Well, he's actually, I guess he'd be a switch, so he can play either way. So if he did have to make the switch, it wouldn't be necessarily the end of the world for him. So, but he has to be out there. He absolutely has. He's your highest paid defenseman. He's the guy who is the face of the defense essentially, and he absolutely needs to take the bull by the horn in games like this and show everybody that he's worthy of it. So, yeah, it's York and Sanheim. That, to me, would be the only two guys that you should have out against McDavid tonight. That's it. You can't have Stahl. Maybe Stahl and Walker. I'm concerned about the speed of the last two pairs after you're dealing with York and Sanheim. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure it out. But that, to me, and if you're going to do that tonight, Jason, then you need to, and if Noah Cates is a guy up front, then you need to keep that matchup the whole time. Right. And that's exactly the way I have to look at it.
Yeah. It's not easy. I mean, it's easy to say, okay, we want to get this matchup, but, the opposition can also change on the fly. Everybody, it takes a collective team thing right here, Smitty, to have any chance dealing with guys like this.
It does, yeah. And I'm interested to see if Sanheim's, kind of added bulk has any, helps him at all against these guys too. But, we talked about, you got Couturier, you've got Cates, and you can roll them out, one and the other. The thing for me is once you get, Sanheim out there with York against McDavid as much as possible, one of the other two pairings is going to obviously have to deal with the Draisaitl line. So, it's going to be a little bit of pick your poison in that regard on the defensive side of things. But, like anything else right now, it's a little bit of development for some of these guys.
Yeah. And you know what else too, Jace? Like I said, with that spot, like don't worry about York out there. You're not going to just break up a pair to try to make it work for Sanheim. I mean, the Flyers are what they are in terms of where they're looking at defense. They don't have Alex Pietrangelo back there or Victor Hedman, that you can throw against them. The one thing I will say, though, this is a game like this against a guy like McDavid. You don't have to necessarily run him through the wall. It's hard enough to do that. If you can get some help, though, slowing him up and have a gap to try to make a play on him in the neutral zone, that's ideal. But at the same time, if you can't get him there, you've got to back in, and you got to try to pivot, leave him so he goes to the outside. He will be most dangerous a skill player anytime they have the middle of the ice.
Frost's not in again tonight. Are you shocked he's not back in tonight? And is that an element that he's not back in tonight because of the result from the other night?
I got a bigger surprise who's not in tonight.
Zamula, right?
I mean, come on. Has there ever been a guy who got first star in the history of a game and got scratched the next?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not the way it's supposed to be. And I don't understand.
Thing?
I don't know. Maybe you're thinking you got something and you want to just not put the brakes on it for. I don't understand it at all. Just play. You got to play. You got to play every night. Yeah, Pettersson was out there tonight. Like he played a good game. Frost. No, I'm not surprised because the forwards scored 2 goals. They were pretty responsible defensively at times, and they outshot the hell out of Vancouver the other night. So, that's the way it goes. He just needs to be better next time he's in. I am surprised it's Zamula.
Yeah, it is shocking because I thought he was good against Columbus too. I thought he was directly responsible for the first goal of that game, the way he defended the blue line. And I would think against a player like McDavid, like he's a guy that you want to be able to defend your blue line with reach like he has. And the other, look, Andre probably moves better and is certainly shiftier. But is that better to deal with a guy like McDavid and Draisaitl is what I want.
Yeah, I was a little surprised it didn't go the other way around, that they didn't rotate another forward in and keep Zamula. But again, John Tortorella said yesterday that he's not going to lose track of these guys once they're out of the lineup. So, I think you're going to see this kind of flip-flopping for a while until things shake out.
All right. Stay tuned. We'll get all the details. A lot of the questions will be answered in the next 2:45 here at the Wells Fargo Center as the Flyers take on the Edmonton Oilers. Tim Saunders, Todd Fedorka, they've got the countdown, the face-off, and all the first-period action. Get the Canadian anthem again tonight as well in honor of Bundy. So stay tuned for that coming up right after this. You've been listening to Flyers Game Day on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.